More than 50% of wetlands in the United States have been destroyed. Wetlands destruction is a major issue in South Carolina, which has lost tens of thousands of acres since the mid-20th century to development, road construction, and farming. In downtown Columbia, wetlands are near to non-existent, except for the one at the corner of Bluff Road and South Beltline Boulevard, right off of Interstate 77.
Wetlands have many values that benefit our society. They help to reduce our immense human impact on the environment, store excess water during heavy rain, and prevent flooding.
Where the water is stored temporarily, the plants that grow in wetlands are called hydrophytic plants, and they have an amazing ability to filter pollution. And so they take up the pollution and keep it from causing harm elsewhere. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who live out in this part of Columbia who live in the floodplain, and so it's very difficult for them to withstand major flood events without having damage to their homes.
After the severe flood in October of 2015, it is evident how valuable these wetlands are in flood prevention. Without the wetlands, many more communities could have been washed away. Wetlands can also help clean water naturally by filtering out pollutants. For an area that is so near downtown Columbia that already has a lot of pollution, the endangered wetlands are invaluable.
156 plant and animal species listed as endangered or threatened depend on wetland habitats for survival. This habitat is a critical environment for migratory birds as well as breeding grounds for many other species.
Their habitats are our habitats, as well as habitats for a lot of other plants and animals.
This particular wetland is a designated Audubon Society banding site.
This White House Road Loop is what's known as a birding hotspot, which means it's an area that a lot of folks go to and look for birds because that's such a good area because of the variety of habitats.
The destruction of these wetlands would have many negative impacts on the environment and the city as a whole.
Even though the proposed site is not being placed directly on top of the wetland pond, the destruction of the buffer zone will nonetheless have a large impact on the wetland. There will be noise and light pollution permeating the wetland area.
We're seeing a gradual loss of wetlands in South Carolina and elsewhere, and as wetlands disappear, the bird population goes down.
The buffer zone is vital to the wetland directly behind it, and by destroying this area, there will be increased runoff and litter that will flow into it. There will be more traffic on the road that the wetland borders, and so this construction raises the question of safety for a nearby school right down the street.
And I work with landowners and developers and show them how to make money by protecting God's resources. 50 feet is certainly wholly inadequate. It should be at least 200 feet of buffer for those wetlands.
On the wetlands, you can destroy a wetland not just by filling it in, but by interfering with its edge, interfering with there's no way you could put in a truck stop any place and not have it impact water flow and water runoff, water drainage.
We have spoken with a local here in Columbia who lives in a low-income African-American community right down the street from the wetland. He wishes to remain anonymous. We asked him what his thoughts were about the proposed development by Love's Truck Stop, and he went around and asked others in his neighborhood as well. He told us that his community feels marginalized by developments such as these. And not only will the construction contribute to a loss of green space in the area, it will also pose a higher risk of flooding.
His comments resonated deeply about environmental injustices. In his words, "We don't feel the need to speak up because it does not matter what me and my community say. The construction is going to happen, and there is nothing we can do about it. Due to past policy, African Americans often feel powerless or lack the cultural capital to take a stance on issues that affect their communities. And thus it is easy for them to give up, to concede to the issue as they feel that their voice will not be heard. Also, environmental injustices occur most often in low-income areas with high populations of people of color. The people in this community are sad about what is happening and think negatively towards the truck stop, but are discouraged because they think that it's going to happen anyways.
Is this how society should function? While we would like for this construction not to go through at all, we understand that the possibility of completely quitting it would not be preferable to the company. If the project is to be completed, the least that we can ask as concerned citizens is that Love's Truck Stop takes steps to build as sustainably as possible. For example, covering the lot with gravel instead of pavement, which allows natural filtration through a pervious surface instead of an impervious one. Another example is to incorporate the natural landscape with the truck stop by making the green space an integral part of the exterior setup. These smaller changes are not complete solutions to the problem. However, we suggest these because we do realize that the project may go through, and so we ask that some small changes be made in order that the impact the construction will have on the area decrease, if only in the slightest.
If Love actually is allowed to put a truck stop at the intersection of Bluff Road and the Heathwood Road, I would hope that the government would require adequate filtration that we know is going to produce a lot of potential pollution for the wetlands. And depending on what type of development it is, we should analyze the site to make sure that the development is appropriate for that site. And when you create any kind of development in close proximity to sensitive natural resources like wetlands, you have to be extraordinarily careful to ensure that there are proper buffers between land disturbing activities and the wetlands so that they are not damaged.
Due to the negative impacts that the truck stop would have on the environment, as well as the people around it, there may be alternative locations that will be more beneficial to both the community and Love's Truck Stop.
One viable option is located right across from the proposed site. This alternative location has 3 advantages. It sits on higher ground, it is already cleared land, and it is much easier to access from the interstate traffic. The tractor-trailers would not have to cross a busy highway, and by building on this site instead of the proposed one, the risk of collisions with the traffic from a K-12 school right down the street would decrease immensely. A second location also exists and is 1 exit away. At this location, there would not be as high of a risk for environmental issues because this site is also pre-developed and wetlands are not bordering it. This piece of land is for sale and may be desirable due to the easy access from the highway, the overall lack of traffic in the area, as well as the absence of any other truck stops close by, which is unlike the area that Love's is currently planning to build on, where there is another gas station right across the street.
So I would think that that up and down the Bluff Road there are some areas that are a lot higher that are not adjacent to wetlands and sensitive resources, and there are certainly much better sites and sites more appropriate for a truck stop than the one being considered. If it was going to be a library or a little small complex of houses, 50 feet might be adequate, but it's a truck stop. And so it's not like it's some rocket science that we got to figure out what's going to happen on that truck stop. There's going to be a whole lot of pollution at that truck stop of all different descriptions. Therefore,
when I look at that area, I sort of look, gee, on the other side of Bluff Road, there's a high area. Wouldn't that be a much better place for a truck stop? No, I'm not against truck stops. Yeah, we need truck stops. But I would hope to see them located in areas that would have minimal impact on native populations of birds and other critters.
Can you imagine all that being gone and you just see 18-wheelers? It's hard to fathom.
By working together, we can find a solution that benefits everyone and save this beautiful wetland and the extraordinary things in it. We hope that Love's Truck Stop will reconsider, and that they will look for more viable areas to build.
Would this proposed development really hold up the value of clean places, friendly faces?